Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Metaphysics Podcast. I'm Dennis Goddard.
And I'm Louise Hicks.
Today we're going deep on a concept that's
Yeah,
mind-bending and empowering.
absolutely.
The idea that consciousness,
Is the ultimate reality.
if you've ever felt like there's more to life than meets the eye,
Right.
or that your thoughts have a bigger impact,
Mm-hmm.
then you realize this one's for you.
Uh,
So hit that subscribe button and
Buckle up.
yeah, we're about to explore some seriously deep stuff.
That's right. We'll be drawing a lot of inspiration today from Neville Goddard,
Okay.
a mystic and spiritual teacher who had a unique perspective on the power of our minds to shape our reality.
Now, I've got to admit, when I first encountered Neville's teachings, I was both intrigued and a bit skeptical.
Sure.
He talks a lot about the idea that our imagination is literally
Yeah.
the force of creation,
Yeah.
like what we focus on,
Right.
what we believe actually shapes the world around us.
That's the idea.
It almost sounds too good to be true, right?
It can definitely sound out there at first, but
Yeah.
stick with us because the implications are incredible.
Right.
Neville believed that our consciousness works kind of like a
Okay.
radio receiver.
Okay.
Just like you tune a radio to a specific frequency to hear a particular station.
Right.
Neville said we're constantly tuning into different frequencies of reality based on
Really?
our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings.
Okay, that's an interesting analogy. So if I'm constantly worrying about things going wrong,
Mm-hmm.
am I essentially tuning into a frequency of problems and negativity, attracting more of that into my life?
Exactly. Neville was very specific about the power of the phrase, I am.
Mhm.
Whatever we declare after those two words, whether consciously or unconsciously,
Yeah.
sets the tone for what we experience.
So if I'm constantly saying, I am stressed or I am overwhelmed,
Mhm.
I'm basically programming myself
Got it.
for more of those experiences.
It's like you're planting those seeds in the fertile ground of your subconscious mind, and you're going to reap what you sow.
Okay.
Here's the empowering part. You can consciously choose to change
All right.
your I am statements.
Interesting.
Instead of saying, I am broke,
Right.
you can start declaring, I am abundant, or I am financially free.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts.
It's about,
It's about actively shifting our self-definition.
yes.
That's really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Hit that like button. If you're resonating with this idea, we'd love to know what you think.
And just saying these affirmations
Right.
isn't some magic spell. It's about embodying
Yeah.
the feeling of what you're declaring.
Right. It can't just be empty words. So how do we actually do that? How do we shift our feelings from, say, lack to abundance?
Well,
Especially when our current circumstances might not reflect it. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck.
this is where the power of imagination comes in, and Neville had a lot to say about this. He talked about something called living in the end,
Okay.
which means assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, even if it hasn't materialized in the physical world yet.
So even if I'm not wealthy right now,
Yeah.
I can start acting as if I am.
Yeah.
But how do I do that authentically when my bank account is telling a different story?
Mm.
I imagine that's a challenge for a lot of our listeners.
It is a challenge, but it's absolutely possible. Think of it like an actor
Okay.
playing a role.
Okay.
They step into the character, embody the emotions, even if it's completely different from their own life.
Right.
With living in the end, you're essentially playing the role
Okay.
of the person you want to become.
So instead of dwelling on my current limitations, I can imagine myself living the life of my dreams, feeling the joy and freedom of financial abundance,
Exactly.
even if I don't have it all figured out yet.
Visualize yourself doing the things you'd do if you were financially free.
Okay.
What would your day look like?
Mm.
What kind of home would you live in?
Yeah.
What experiences would you create for yourself and your loved ones? Don't censor yourself. Let your imagination run wild.
This is where it gets really fun. It's like giving ourselves permission to dream big without limitations.
Yes.
But what about all those negative beliefs we might have about money? You know, the money is the root of all evil kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How do we reconcile those beliefs with this idea of embodying wealth and abundance?
That's such an important point because so many of us have picked up negative beliefs about money from our upbringing, from society, even from well-meaning friends and family.
Right.
But it's crucial to reframe those beliefs
Okay.
because money itself is neutral.
Hmm.
It's just energy, a tool for exchange and creation.
Oh.
It's like fire. It can be used to cook a delicious meal, or it can be used to cause destruction.
Right.
It's all about how we use it.
So it's not about demonizing money or putting it on a pedestal. It's
Oh.
about recognizing its potential for both good and bad and choosing to use it consciously for
Precise.
positive purposes.
Instead of focusing on the lack of money,
Okay.
shift your attention to the abundant energy that flows through the universe.
Oh.
And see money as a manifestation of that energy. We've got to clear the way
Yeah.
for that abundance to flow into our lives.
Okay, I'm starting to see money in a whole new light. This is really shifting my perspective. And for our listeners who are just tuning in, we're diving deep into the idea of consciousness as ultimate reality, inspired by the teachings of Neville Goddard. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on the rest of this mind-blowing conversation.
We're going to explore even more practical techniques
Okay.
for applying these principles. So stay tuned.
This is just the beginning, folks. We'll be back in a moment to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic, so don't go anywhere.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the Metaphysics Podcast.
We're diving deep into the idea that consciousness shapes our reality. And this is where things get even more
Oh, yeah.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
One of the most fascinating aspects of Neville Goddard's teachings is the idea that time as we perceive it isn't quite what we think it is.
Right. We tend to think of time as this
Yeah.
linear progression, past, present, future. Yeah.
But Neville believed that all possibilities exist now
Okay.
in this internal present moment.
So it's like we're not limited by our past experiences
Right, yeah.
or by some predetermined future.
Exactly. Our consciousness is what chooses which reality we experience.
Yeah.
Think of it like a
Okay.
choose-your-own-adventure book.
Right. Yeah.
You have the power to turn to a different page, a different outcome, based on your thoughts, beliefs, and choices.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So if all possibilities exist now,
Yeah.
does that mean I can literally change my past or future by shifting my consciousness?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of Neville's teachings.
Okay.
While we can't go back and physically change events that have already happened,
Right.
we can change our perception of the past,
Hmm.
which in turn changes its impact on our present and future.
So it's not about denying what happened, but about choosing to focus on a more empowering interpretation
Yes.
of those events.
Let's say you had a negative experience
Okay.
that's still causing you pain or holding you back.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of dwelling on it and replaying it in your mind,
Yeah.
you can use a technique that Neville called revision.
Revision. I'm intrigued. How does that work?
It's essentially the act of consciously
Yeah.
rewriting your past.
Okay.
You go back to that experience in your imagination
Right.
and create a new, more empowering version of it.
So, for example, if I had a job interview that went terribly wrong,
Yeah.
I could imagine that interview going amazingly well. I could rewrite the script in my mind, so to speak.
Exactly. Imagine yourself walking into that interview feeling confident and prepared.
Yeah.
Imagine yourself answering the questions eloquently
Uh-huh.
and impressing the interviewers.
Right.
Imagine yourself walking out knowing you absolutely nailed it.
But isn't that just a form of self-deception? If I'm rewriting the past,
Right.
am I not just lying to myself?
It's not about lying to yourself. It's
Right.
about recognizing that your perception of reality is subjective. It's about choosing to focus on a version of the past that empowers you rather than limits you. And when you change your perception of the past, you change the energy associated with it,
Okay.
which in turn changes the energy you're projecting into the present and future.
That makes a lot of sense. So if I'm constantly replaying negative experiences in my mind,
Right.
I'm basically perpetuating that negative energy,
Yeah.
which can attract more negativity into my life.
Exactly. But when you use revision to rewrite those experiences in a more positive light, you're shifting your energy, and that can have a profound impact on your reality.
Okay, this is starting to sound less like self-deception and more like taking control of our reality.
And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
We have far more power to shape our reality than we often realize.
This is mind-blowing stuff for our listeners who are just joining us. We're diving deep into the idea of consciousness as the ultimate reality inspired by the teachings of Neville Goddard. If you're finding this as fascinating as we are, hit that like button and subscribe to the Metaphysics Podcast so you don't miss out on the rest of this incredible conversation.
We'll be back in a moment to explore even more practical techniques for applying these principles, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Metaphysics Podcast. We've been on quite a journey today, exploring this idea that consciousness is the ultimate reality. And if you're still with us, you're probably starting to realize just how much power we have
Absolutely.
to shape our lives.
but as you might imagine, shifting your entire belief system about how reality works is no small feat.
Right. It's one thing to intellectually grasp these concepts,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to actually live them, to embody them.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. So for this last segment, let's talk about some practical techniques that people can use to start applying these principles and really make a difference in their lives.
I'm all ears.
Mm-hmm.
What are some actionable steps our listeners can take starting today?
Well, one of the most powerful and perhaps simplest practices is cultivating gratitude. It might sound cliche,
Okay.
but it's incredibly potent.
Okay, gratitude. But isn't that just about being thankful for what we have?
Yeah.
How does that tie into this whole consciousness creating reality thing?
Gratitude is more than just good manners.
Okay.
It's about shifting your focus from what you lack
Right.
to what you already have. And when you're feeling genuinely grateful, you're vibrating at a high frequency, which attracts more things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
It's like a magnet for good things.
So the more I focus on the good in my life, the more good I attract. It's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. And there are simple ways to weave gratitude
Right.
into your daily routine. You can start a gratitude journal where you write down 3 things you're grateful for each day.
Uh-huh.
It could be anything from the sunshine to a delicious meal to a kind word from a stranger.
I love that idea. Sometimes I think we get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life that we forget to appreciate
We do.
the simple things.
And even on those days when you're feeling down or challenged,
Right.
you can still find things to be grateful for. It might be your health, your loved ones, or even just the fact that you woke up this morning.
It's about choosing to focus on the good, even amidst the chaos.
Exactly. And speaking of choosing,
Yeah.
another key aspect of this process is taking what Neville called inspired action.
Inspired action. Okay. I'm curious, what does that mean?
It's about aligning your actions with your desires, but not in a forceful or desperate way. It's about listening to that inner voice, that intuition that guides you towards what you truly want.
So it's not about grinding or hustling or forcing things to happen. It's about following that inner nudge,
Right.
that sense of knowing.
It's about trusting that the universe has a plan for you, even if you don't see the whole picture just yet. And when you take action from that place of inspiration, you're essentially saying, I'm ready to co-create with the universe.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all of this ties together. We cultivate gratitude to raise our vibration. We listen to our intuition to guide our actions, and we trust that the universe is conspiring with us
Yeah.
to bring our desires into reality.
And along the way, we have to cultivate patience and detachment.
Detachment, that sounds counterintuitive. Shouldn't we be passionate about our desires?
We can be passionate, but when we're too attached to a
Yes.
specific outcome, we can actually block its manifestation. It's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
So it's about wanting something without needing it,
Yes.
without clinging to it.
It's about surrendering to the process, trusting that everything is unfolding in divine timing.
That's a powerful perspective, but honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges for people is going to be believing all of this.
I agree.
Such a radical shift from the way we're conditioned to see the world.
It takes a leap of faith, but here's the thing. You don't have to believe it completely to start seeing results. Just be willing to experiment,
Okay.
to play with these concepts and see what happens.
So it's about having an open mind and a willingness to explore, even if we're not totally convinced.
Exactly. And the more you experiment, the more evidence you'll start to see in your own life. You'll start to notice synchronicities, those seemingly coincidental events that align with your desires. You'll start to attract opportunities and resources that you never thought possible.
It's about stepping out of our comfort zones and into a whole new way of being in the world. And for our listeners who are ready to embark on that journey, what's one final piece of advice you'd offer?
I'd say be patient with yourself. This is a process of unlearning and relearning. There will be times when you doubt, when you fall back into old patterns, but that's okay. Just keep coming back to the principles we've discussed.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Celebrate every small victory, every shift in perception, every moment of clarity. And remember, you are far more powerful than you realize. You have the ability to create a life that is truly aligned with your soul's purpose.
This has been an incredibly inspiring conversation. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
We have. And if you're feeling inspired to dive deeper, I highly recommend exploring Neville Goddard's work. There's a wealth of wisdom waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, subscribe to the Metaphysics podcast, and share it with your friends who are ready to unlock their own creative power.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so leave a comment below and let us know what resonated with you most. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning and keep believing in the power of your own consciousness to create the life of your dreams.
Thanks for joining us on the Metaphysics Podcast. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the mysteries of the universe.